Hi there! Welcome to Switch Mania. I am Clarence and we'll talk about the best Nintendo Switch games on sale. We will be covering the UK, EU, US, Australia, and Canada eShop. But first and foremost, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you want to see more of this series, please leave a like, remember to subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell to receive future notifications. Likes and subscriptions help keep the channel alive. First on our list is South Park: The Stick of Truth. South Park: The Stick of Truth is by far the best South Park game ever created, as well as one of the funniest video games ever. This game is recommended for gamers who enjoy a good laugh. Even better, players can take the game with them wherever they go thanks to the Switch. The Stick of Truth has all of the good characteristics of the animated show, with an emphasis on sarcastic humor. It also has a good, straightforward combat system and a story that fans will enjoy. Even though the game could have been longer, it's difficult to understand why some parts were cut while others, which would have been more daring, were left in. This didn't detract from what was already a fun and incredibly funny RPG based on one of the most popular animated shows available. The Stick of Truth is the same game that was released years before. This new version does not take advantage of the Switch's special features, which is unfortunate, but it is still a fantastic game that can be played anywhere. Next is Trials Rising. Trials Rising is a fantastic Switch experience. Despite a few flaws, it has a lot of creative levels and ways to replay and change your experience. Despite some frame rate issues on handhelds, the Switch version is just as enjoyable to play as other versions. Keep your hands steady and begin navigating the peaks and valleys of the Trials world. Simply ensure that you have an internet connection. Trials Rising comes out swinging because it has a lot of content, a lot of ways to replay it, and a reasonable price. Even though I believe in the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It is also true that following the crowd, even if you are the leader of the pack, can make it difficult to stand out. Trials Rising is a difficult game to put down. We'll be so focused on getting that gold or platinum medal that we won't notice minor errors in the graphics section. Its level design is fantastic. Next up, Assassin's Creed: The Rebel Collection. It can be strange to return to the older format after spending hours getting used to how a new Creed works. However, neither Black Flag nor Rogue feel old, and they are still a lot of fun to play. If that isn't enough to entice you, perhaps the fact that the Rebel Collection contains the best collection of sea shanties this side of the West Indies will. The most intriguing aspect of the two games in the Rebel Collection is that unlike Assassin's Creed 3, they've both held up fairly well over time. Both Black Flag and Rogue are excellent games to add to your Switch library, and the dozens of hours you'll get out of each are well worth the investment. Assassin's Creed: The Rebel Collection on the Nintendo Switch is a technical marvel that demonstrates what a major publisher can do with the port on the platform if they put in enough time and effort. Next is Assassin's Creed: The Ezio Collection. The Ezio Collection in one package. Like this is the best way to play these games. These are fantastic games that despite their age are still enjoyable to play. There are some weak spots and parts that feel repetitive, but there are also plenty of reminders of why these games are so popular. Assassin's Creed Revelations is without a doubt one of the best games in the series. There are some issues with the Switch release, and one could argue that a straight port of the original games at a higher resolution would have been preferable to this down port of the remasters, but the end result is still satisfactory. Overall, the performance is a significant improvement over the original releases, and it is still a better way to play. It's a shame that Ubisoft is going backwards through the original Assassin's Creed story arc with their Switch release. But even if you haven't played the first one, this trilogy is fantastic. Next is Child of Light Ultimate Edition. The adventure has a very sad tone, but it still feels very real. The delicate visuals and wistful music capture a sadness that is still uncommon. Even though time has passed, the sadness that makes this game so appealing remains, because there is nothing else like Child of Light. The Switch has made no difference to the experience. The beautiful art design stands out whether docked or handheld mode, and the controls are smooth regardless of which controller you use. Overall, I would recommend Child of Light to anyone who missed it the first time around. The word light in the title says it all. You get game mechanics normally found only in massive RPGs in a short game that is just as refreshing now as it was when it first came out. Even if frame rate issues occur only occasionally, it's a shame, but they're not enough to ruin the enjoyable adventure. Next is South Park: The Fractured But Whole. South Park is an excellent role-playing game that knows how to adapt the genre's best elements to its amusing, perilous world. It's also full of the type of humor that distinguishes South Park, which keeps the story from falling flat at times. It's entertaining, has a smooth game system, and looks and sound fantastic. The only thing I don't like about it is that there are sometimes long load times that disrupt the game's flow. South Park: The Fractured But Whole contains the best of the series. The creators created an outrageous and funny RPG adventure with rude and offensive humor. Kun and Friends can now be played anywhere thanks to the Switch, but it takes longer to load. Nonetheless, fans should not miss out on this raunchy superhero epic. The Fractured But Whole is a must-have for both old and new South Park fans. It has a lot of dialogue, crude humor, and a battle system that improves with each playthrough. Next is Immortals Fenyx Rising. Immortals Fenyx Rising is always going to be compared to Breath of the Wild, but it fights back admirably. What distinguishes Immortals from Nintendo's best Zelda game is not so much what it shares as what it does differently. It has a unique way of telling stories, a fantastic way of progressing, and a world you'll never want to leave. Immortals isn't the perfect game, but it's pretty damn close. Immortals Fenyx Rising isn't as polished as its obvious inspiration, but it stands out thanks to the great and funny use of Greek mythology, a fast combat system that allows Phoenix to level up quickly, and a wide variety of unique weapons and armors to collect, which makes exploring fun. If you enjoyed Breath of the Wild, you'd be insane not to try Immortals Fenyx Rising. Immortals Fenyx Rising will appeal to fans of video games and ancient mythology. It has excellent gameplay, art, and music, but the best feature is the expansive world to explore, a true adventure that you should not miss. Next up, Valiant Hearts: The Great War. Valiant Hearts: The Great War is a one-of-a-kind video game created with a rare and novel goal in mind: to use video games to recreate, even through fiction, a complex historical context such as the First World War in order to cultivate and preserve historical and personal memory. Valiant Hearts: The Great War does more than just walk you through the various battles of World War I. Instead, it tells the story of a French family to help you understand the larger historical context. This personal story perfectly frames the game's documentary-style presentation. Despite a few errors and areas where it could have been more improved, it is a beautiful and well-made game that provides a unique look into one of the deadliest wars in human history. Valiant Hearts: The Great War is an emotional and educational experience. It's a rich experience that exists somewhere between the worlds of comic books and video games. Next is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World: The Game Complete Edition. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World: The Game is best described as enthusiastic, as almost every corner of its surreal cartoon version of Toronto has a well-designed video game fight or a cute detail to look for. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World: The Game Complete Edition isn't strictly linear, because you can grind on old levels and return to shops for minor upgrades, but it's still a focused and feisty beat-em-up that has stood the test of time. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World: The Game Complete Edition only had to bring back a game I hadn't been able to play in almost years to make me happy. Obviously, it does, but I'm still surprised at how good the game is and how much of it is a true love letter to Scott Pilgrim and gaming. It's not the longest or easiest game, but I believe that any gamer should give it a shot because the gameplay is enjoyable and the graphics are excellent. Next up, Super Mega Baseball 3. If you have a Switch and even a passing interest in baseball, Super Mega Baseball 3 is a must-have. It is currently one of the best independent games on the platform. It may be the best independent sports game ever. It does everything that its predecessor did, but better. Pitching mechanics have improved, stealing bases has improved significantly, and the game is running smoothly. I only had a few issues when playing online, but that could have been due to my internet connection. Super Mega Baseball 3 is a great place to start if you want to play a great baseball game on the Switch. There is also a free demo that allows you to play the online pennant race mode, exhibition games, and customize your player. Super Mega Baseball 3 is one of the best sports game ever created because it combines arcade and simulation baseball gameplay. Next is Lost in Random. Lost in Random does an excellent job of telling a modern coming-of-age dark fairy tale that players of all ages can appreciate. The characters and world's design complements the crazy and clever writing. The game's gameplay is also unique and enjoyable, and while the combat lacks depth and difficulty, it fits with the story. Lost in Memorandum has a beautiful world with art direction reminiscent of the golden age of stop-motion animation and a well-told story. Add to that a well-thought-out and well-executed combat system with some redundancies and ideas that aren't fully utilized. However, Zoink provides us with a creepy and interesting story that never gets old and is well worth playing. Next up, Burnout Paradise Remastered. Burnout Paradise Remastered is still one of the best racing games ever made, despite its age. The size and layout of Paradise City and Big Surf Island, as well as the numerous events and secrets hidden throughout, make the game long enough that it's easy to spend more than 10 hours playing it. The local and online multiplayer is as enjoyable as ever, and the fact that the game matches the original PS3 and Xbox 360 versions demonstrates that the console can be a good second home for these classics. Unless you've already played it and don't need the portable version, Burnout Paradise Remastered is a great racing game for Nintendo system. Criterion reminds us that we don't all have to be the same age in an age with AAA games take themselves too seriously, and open world games feels like nothing more than busy work. Burnout Paradise is still the best open world racing game, despite the fact that it was released more than a decade ago. This demonstrates that simple gameplay loops are frequently the best. Next is Unravel 2. Unravel 2 is a lot of fun. Every thread of its heartwarming adventure is woven with love and care, and the emotional bond between the Yarnies is palpable throughout. This game is impossible not to fall in love with because it has so many beautiful things to see, a great soundtrack, and puzzles that are both difficult and simple to solve. This game is worth your time even if you play alone, but if you have a friend to play co-op with, this should be a must-have for your Switch. The gameplay is enjoyable and intelligent as it has always been, making it one of the best co-op experiences available for the Switch right now, despite the obvious technical downgrade required to make it work. If you don't mind that, you should look into Unravel 2. Just a quick reminder, 85% of you guys are not yet subscribed to the channel. If you are enjoying the videos and not subscribed yet, why not? You're coming back anyways. Next is one of my favorites, Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. In a nutshell, Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen's port to the Switch is about as good as fans could hope for. The entire game is present and it works well. It's a great deal because there's hours of great content here. Those who want to replay the game will be pleased with Capcom's efforts, and those who want a world that lasts as long as their longest Switch game will discover a very fun and rewarding game to play. It's difficult to believe that Dragon's Dogma was released in 2012 because it feels fresh and current. The deep combat system remains smooth and natural, and the pawn system remains as distinct as ever. It works extremely well, but no other game developer has decided to imitate it. It has an excellent technical section, soundtrack, story, and gameplay that any fan of the genre should purchase. Next up, Mega Man Zero/ZX Legacy Collection. The Mega Man Zero/ZX Legacy Collection, which includes both the Zero and ZX series, is by far the best Legacy Collection to date. Even though the Zero games are somewhat unfair due to the zoomed-in GBA view and harsh live system, the new Save Assist feature allows players to play through these games at their own pace without feeling overpowered. Last but not the least, despite its lack of levels, Z Chasers is a good bonus game. Despite the poor quality of the stories, fans will find 6 games that are packed with content and entertaining to play. The Zero series, like the X series, features fast-paced run-and-gun platforming adventures. Zero can be leveled up in each entry, and both permanent and temporary buffs can be used. The Zero games are known for being difficult, but the casual scenario mode and save assist feature can help those who need a break. This collection is a fantastic way to pass the time, and you should definitely consider playing it. Next is Inbento. Inbento is entertaining because of its strong cat theme, and the cute puzzles you must solve make it a good fit for the Nintendo Switch. When a puzzle seems insurmountable, the desire to know what happens to the cat characters can keep you going, because you can try the puzzle as many times as you want and there are no time limits. The limited number of moves isn't as bad as it sounds. This makes it simple to enter and exit the game. Inbento is a cute and entertaining little game that looks fantastic. However, it may be too difficult for younger children and not interesting enough for adults, but that doesn't mean it's not worth playing. It simply means that, like lunch, it is best shared with young person. Even if you're not a cat person at heart, you should add Inbento to your puzzle game collection because it's so cute and entertaining to play. Next is Golf Peaks. Golf Peaks is an excellent way to put the concept of golf to use. The rules have been changed to make it more of a puzzle game than a score-based sports game. For the few hours it took me to complete all of the puzzles, puzzles, I had a lot of fun with it. I enjoyed the challenge and how it made me feel at ease. It's a great idea that was well executed, and it was entertaining to play while sitting in a bar or something. Golf Picks is a fun game that you don't have to be a golf fan to enjoy. The puzzles keep you interested until the very end. People always talk about how great golf is for staying calm and zen. Golf Picks isn't all that dissimilar to real golf. I've never been anywhere other than a mini-put place, so I can't say for sure, but Golf Picks is just as good for getting you into a zen puzzle zone. Next is Heaven Dust 2. Heaven Dust 2 is a must-have for fans of survival horror games. It's a clear homage to Resident Evil, and despite being played from an isometric perspective, it gives you the same feeling as the original games. Even though the story is based on an old idea, it manages to surprise you, and the setting allows you to lose yourself in the game for the few hours you spend with it. Heaven Dust 2 is the most enjoyable survival horror game I've played in a long time. It's perfect in the sense that it feels like it's from the past. It also has a rewarding campaign structure and simple battles that require some strategy. Heaven Dust 2 is a fantastic game for fans of Capcom's classic survival horror titles. A fantastic independent game that will transport us to a different era. Next up, Candleman. Candleman is a fun mobile game to play because the levels are short and can be completed whenever you want. It's also simple to replay because the goal of each level is to light candles, but it's not very long. It's a shame though because I believe there could have been so much more to learn. Candleman on the other hand is the best game I can think of to play if you want a short, thought-provoking game that won't take up all your time and won't cost you a fortune. Overall, Candleman is a fantastic game for anyone who enjoys platform games or simply beautiful art, even in its simplified form. It's a cute and inspiring game that you can pick up and play for a few minutes whenever you have time, or you can play it all at once. Next is The Inner World, The Last Wind Monk. The Inner World, The Last Wind Monk is a good game, but when docked, it lacks good pointer controls. Monk improves on everything that was good about the first game. It keeps the same magical world but expands on it and serves it faster and more responsively than the first game did. This means that whereas the previous game was a point-and-click game with a charming world that was worth checking out, this one goes above and beyond by fixing what needed to be fixed and creating an overall experience that is so good that the player can stop playing because of all its positive aspects. The Inner World, The Last Wind Monk is a sequel that goes much further than the first game, much to the player's delight. This game has great writing and humor, as well as creative puzzles, and a fun way to use the Nintendo Switch touchscreen. It will guide the players through an adventure that will make them think a lot. Next is Slime Sand. Do you want a fast-paced platforming game that will put your patience to the test and make you want to throw your Nintendo Switch across the room? Then you should play Slime Sand. Fans of Super Meat Boy and similar games will feel right at home with this addictive, well-made game that will have players pulling out their hair but unable to put down until they've had their fill of fun. Overall, Slime Sand is a surprising and incredibly fun and downloadable game that platformer fans should not pass up. The style is lovely, the music is catchy, and the gameplay is fantastic from moment to moment. Slime Sand is without a doubt the most difficult 2D platformer game I've ever encountered, so if you want to put your gaming skills to the test in a new way, you can't get much better than this. Next is Dragon Ball FighterZ. The Switch version is identical to the PS4 and Xbox versions. It's as smooth and sharp as ever, with no input lag whether you're using the Joy-Cons, the Pro Controller, docking the Switch, or playing it handheld. Surprisingly, online battles run flawlessly, with no lag or stuttering. Even at odd times, I could always find someone to fight with. Dragon Ball FighterZ is a port of a AAA game, and the Switch version should be purchased. Dragon Ball FighterZ is a fantastic fighting game as well as a fantastic Dragon Ball game. It's simple to learn but difficult to master. The Nintendo Switch port has a huge success, and it's fantastic that this game can now be played anywhere. Dragon Ball FighterZ is one of the most interesting and well-animated fighting games I've ever played. It's a fun game that you can play alone or with friends. Next up, Nobody Saves the World. After playing Nobody Saves the World on Xbox Series X, Switch, and PC, I prefer the Switch version because it allows you to play at home or on the go with a good port. The way you play corresponds to the system's simplicity. I'm going to keep playing on Nobody Saves the World on Switch until I finish it, but this has to be my favorite Drinkbox Studios game so far. Nobody Saves the World is a charming action role-playing game that combines Zelda and Diablo elements with its own distinct style. Nobody Saves the World is a charming little action role-playing game. You should consider adding this to your Switch library because the controls are smooth, the graphics and sound are fantastic, there are numerous ways to customize the game, and the multiplayer is fantastic. Next up, DORAEMON Story of Seasons, Friends of the Great Kingdom. DORAEMON has always been about whimsical fantasy, and both the first collaboration with Story of Seasons and this one are ideal video game partners for the popular manga character. I find it odd that these games are localized when anime, manga, and movies aren't, but perhaps Bandai Namco is banking on the warm spirit and people's undying love for Story of Seasons to bring them in instead of the iconic mascot. And if that's the case, it makes sense, because once you get past the DORAEMON facade, you'll notice that this is a classic Story of Seasons game, to the point of making you feel old, which is a good thing in this case. DORAEMON Story of Seasons, Friends of the Great Kingdom immerses us in the craziness of the famous franchise, which takes us to a new planet full of different landscapes, characters of various species, and a story that is both funny and sad. And last but not the least, PAC-MAN Championship Edition 2 Plus. PAC-MAN Championship Edition 2 Plus is an excellent addition to the Switch eShop and a significant advancement for the PAC-MAN franchise as a whole. Many games have a long history, but some of the first games in the industry are either stuck in re-releases or aren't as enjoyable to play today. If PAC-MAN Championship Edition 2 Plus demonstrates anything, it's that with a little imagination, the core mechanics of these old games can easily appeal to a modern audience. Overall, PAC-MAN Championship Edition 2 Plus for the Nintendo Switch outperforms every previous version of the game. It includes a lot of the original game as well as this new Plus game that alters the way of the game is typically played. One must-have Nintendo Switch package includes two beautiful and difficult to do ways to have fun. The two-player mode contains enough content to feel like its own game. That's all guys, I hope this video was helpful in deciding which game to play. And thank you for checking out the list. Please remember to subscribe and we'll see you at the next one.